Nearly forgot. Rightio. And yeah, so like I said, this is supposed to be interactive. So if you do have any questions, no question's a dumb question. And it's also good to get your experiences. Hey, Anita, good to get your experiences along the way as well. So the one thing we discovered this morning from our manager session was that most of you use PCs, not Macs. And we know that that actually impacts the way that things operate on REAPiT. So both Abby and I use Macs, so what you'll be seeing is a Mac view of things in REAPiT, but you might have a different experience because you're on a PC or a Microsoft product. So just want to acknowledge that. But we are really keen to hear if what you're seeing is not on our sharing is not what you actually see when you're trying to do stuff in REAPiT, because it's good for us to understand what those differences are. I think we've as we strike these issues, we try and fix them, but we're not always, not always aware that the issues are happening. So just wanted to pop that on the table. Abby, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's sort of got it all.
Okay, so we're going to start with um, 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 setting up a new activity. And Abby, I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind doing that with your whited upper login so you can access your regional priorities and what have
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
And
are you
and
able
I need to let you
to?
share your screen. So
Yeah.
sorry. Allow. There we go. Right. You should be able to share now.
Oh, all right. Oh no, I'm in the test right now. Wait, let's get out of there. Cool. So, what are we going to do? Are we going to set up a
Set up a new activity, please.
Yeah, cool. So for hopefully most people are okay with this, but obviously there are new users to reap. So anything when we're looking at the main page, anything that's setting up new things sits down here in the processes section, and anything that's obviously on the go is up here in the list section. And then we've also got these little arrows out to the side that give us more options if you ever think that you can't find stuff as well. So that's how we do that. So setting up a new activity, basically you go here and then it prompts you with everything that you need to start putting in. So we're going to set up, I'm just going to call it a test rubbish activity, um, just so that we can track that in our system. And we're going to set it up as an enrolled activity.
So while Abby's doing that, just want to remind you that all of your ACE activities must be enrolled, not group, just so you're clear about that, all right?
So the ones obviously with the stars are the required fields, and the ones that aren't so as important at the start. So you can choose a category that you link it to, but you may choose just to leave that blank for now. So we're going to choose the type. So it's a community activity. We're going to choose our start and end dates. So we'll make it start today, and we'll run it through for a week. We're going to choose a territory, and it's going to be within our Masterton district. A region as well, if you guys want to track your regions within your REAP, if you like to cut your pie that way as well, you have the option to do that. So the staff responsible. So this will should come up with the active people on your list and how many hours you plan to deliver your activity for. So our rubbish activity is going to be for 4 hours.
Right, before you move on, so just want to make sure you guys are all really clear with that stuff. So just a reminder, your territories are your territorial local authorities or district councils. The way that they are set up in REAPiT has to be the way that we report them to TEC. So please don't add macrons where there are no macrons, or make sure that there are macrons if there aren't any. You know what I mean? It has to absolutely reflect what we do report through to TEC. The region itself is, like Abby said, is your own choice. You don't have to have a region if you don't split your particular REAP district up, but up to you how you might want to do that. And the hours is your delivery time. So making sure that you're really clear about that. So if you're delivering a program for 4 hours, but you're paying your tutor for 5 hours, you've got to put four in here. This is your delivery time, not your total time for a particular activity.
And also know that you can adapt this once this is set up in the system. So the first and foremost is getting that in there and then making sure that obviously you've got your activity number as well so that you know where to go back to or obviously search back by that name. So we're going to hit OK. And that's then going to prompt us to choose an initiative that we link it to. So everybody's initiatives, your list might look a little bit different depending on what you've got set up in your contracts as well. But for the purpose of this, I'll choose employability skills. But Tracy, do you have anything to say around this list?
Yeah, so for your ASIN communities, it'll be one of those top four that you're picking from: employability, foundation, health and wellbeing, or social and cultural inclusion. Only those four. If you choose something else, then it won't be part of your REAP Aotearoa contracted ACE work.
Yeah. So we're going to call it that. Again, the fields that are really important are the ones that have got the stars by them. So we've done some updates around our primary and primary priorities and focus over the last 6 months that's happened in, probably the last few months.
Yeah.
So now you'll get your drop-down list of what the primary priority choices are. So this one's about employability skills. And then depending on what primary priority you've selected will depend on then what becomes available as the primary focus. So we see this list because we've clicked employability skills. However, if we chose foundation skills, our secondary list will look different as with any of the others. So those are all interlinked. Yeah, activity type.
For ACE, the majority of your activity types will be course.
Yeah.
All right.
Our territory, again, and our primary target. So again, these have all been linked and updated in the last few months. So depending on who your courses or activity is related to is depending on those targets that you choose as well. So it's important that you are selecting those right ones. And then once we've done that, that's all the really critical information that gets us from the setup phase into our activity then being live on REAPiT in the database. And then from there, we move through the tabs.
Right. So I just want to talk about a few parts of this details screen. And I'll start with the description and the marketing description. So a couple of things with regard to the way you name your programs. The description bit, so that top line test rubbish activity, is what gets reported through to TEC. So it's important that that name clearly reflects what the program is about from those ACE priorities that we're working towards, the employability, the foundation skills, the health and wellbeing, and the social and cultural inclusion. So I just challenge you to have a bit of a look at what you're naming your programs to see whether or not, if you were working for TEC and you had to have a look to see whether or not you could tell what something was being aligned to, you get a clear picture from the name of the program. I know that we're all currently working on our mix of provision for 2026. So this is your opportunity to go, yeah, that program does point to that particular priority area, and you can see how it relates. Any questions about that? Is that clear? Yeah. The marketing description is how you might market the program. So let's say you're doing a program on foundation skills, and you might call it foundation skills through sewing. or but you may not necessarily market it as foundation skills through sewing. It might just be sewing as your marketing name for a course. The other point I want to make here is you can't have any programs with the same name. They've all got to be different, otherwise they get rejected when we report them to TEC as duplicate programs. Even though we know they're not and they're different dates and all the rest of it, their system doesn't allow for um, anything being named the same as something else. So we always say put something beside the name so it clearly shows it as a separate program.
Mm. So I've just gone and added. So now that I'm in the system and I've got my activity live, we can obviously still make amendments now. So just off the back of that, this is an activity that we run every term. So we don't want the name to duplicate. Obviously, that will cause problems at that end. So it's making sure that you've got those unique identifiers in that line there.
Yeah. Any
Cool.
questions about that bit? Yeah, I do monitor that, and every so often I'll kick something back to a REAP where it looks like there are duplicated names, but that's up to you fellas to make sure you're keeping on top of that stuff.
Trace, so we can just have Te Reo Māori, term one, term two, three, term four.
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't need to put 2025, do we? Because that would
No,
be
no, you don't need to,
just a
but you
term.
put just making sure it's a unique name. Now, if you're running more than one Te Reo Māori program in a term, you might need to go
A
Te Reo
location.
Māori April, Te Reo Māori May, Te Reo
Yeah.
Māori June, something like that, as long as they're clearly differently named. Yeah. Um, okay, so let's get on to planned hours and session hours. So, Abby, can you just go and put maybe two sessions in against this particular one? So, what we're saying with planned hours, the total of your session hours needs to equal your planned hours. You can't have, say, 6 hours in sessions and only 4 hours in planned.
Start at 1 p.m. and we're going to run it through to 3 p.m.
So, there's
And
2 hours, and then there'll be another one that'll run.
we're going to do the same 2 days later. So there you'll see those hours populate and your sessions populate.
Yeah, so if we go back to the details screen, you'll see that you have 4 planned hours and your session hours equals 4. So it's your total session hours that come up, not your per session hours that come up. Does that make sense? Yep. Sometimes it's when I go through some stuff, I see stuff where the session hours and the planned hours are different. I will generally go back to a REAP when that happens and just get them to fix that up. Any questions about that?
Can you just say that again, Trace? I lost you at the end. So the planned hours is total all up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're going to use sessions, and you don't have to use sessions, but if you're going to use sessions, the total of those sessions hours should equal the same as your planned hours. And I know a few of you do use session hours, in particular, if you're running a program over 10 weeks or something like that, you'll have 10 different sessions in there or whatever it might be. But you need to make sure that the planned hours and the session hours equal each other.
So now that those session hours have clicked in there, so before that, that planned hours were showing as red. So that's when it didn't align, but now that we've put them in and then we've obviously clicked out of there, those are aligning now. So that shows you the session hours from the next tab and those are aligning.
Okay. Let's talk about the minimum and maximum. So that's the number of participants you are anticipating. So it doesn't mean to say that you are locked into those numbers. It's mainly for how you manage your enrollments and when you're enrolling for a course that's likely to have a lot of people, you might say, well, actually, we only want 12 maximum in this particular course. So we're going to put whatever numbers we want to put in there. The key thing is when you're looking at what you've got planned for the year, it's the maximum number that is used to calculate your potential hours for a course. So it's important that you do have at least a number in the maximum number, not the minimum number. Does that make sense? Especially for those of you that monitor how you're tracking.
And this maximum number also links back to if you go from your home page into your activity, which I'll do and then jump back. So if we go in here to our activity list, what you'll, let me get you guys out of the way so I can see what you see down here. That's linked to the maximum. So say every time we enroll somebody on that course, that's going to count down. So if we had 10 spaces available and then we've obviously enrolled 4 learners, it's showing you straight off the back there, you've got 6 spaces still available. So just a really easy check for people if they're inquiring as well. Get back to that.
50294. I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so if we just want to scoot down to the status
Yeah.
for this particular course, it's currently the status is approved.
And
Well, we'll put planned in, right? So just want to talk about the status of a program. So can you just click on that box to bring up that list? Yeah. Okay, so there are four statuses that a program can be. Planned means that you're thinking of running it, and you're popping it into REAPiT for planning purposes. Approved means that it is running, and you're taking enrolments for that program. Completed obviously means that the program is completed, and cancelled means that you didn't run the program after all. So it's better that you put in cancelled as opposed to deleting a program. It then allows you to see how many programs you might have cancelled during the year, and that helps you with your planning for the following year. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. If you're somebody that monitors activity, sometimes it's really handy to see what courses are being cancelled. Because if you've got people working in your team and they're setting up all these courses and they keep cancelling them, you need to know about why that is. Now, are they setting them up because they just need to make numbers up, or are they setting them up and people genuinely don't want them? You need to make sure that you understand why something might be getting cancelled. Okay, there's a few other bits and pieces on the screen you can utilise. You can add fees. Oh, okay. We'll do, hang on.
Don't know why that just popped up.
Okay. You can set fees for your ACE courses if you want to. In the weighted upper, they've got 2 types of fees. They've got a standard fee and they've got a community services discount, and they also have a senior citizens discount. I don't know how you guys are using that now. Do you use that much now? No.
Well, not while they're all free.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all our ACE courses are free, yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't used to be, and that's why we used to put those sorts of figures in there. If you choose to charge for your ACE courses, this is how you can actually pop the fees in there, just so you can see if somebody's enrolling something, how much they need to pay, if you choose to go down that track. Sorry, my dogs are nutting off in the background. The course content should just be a few lines about what the course is intended to do. So it could be developing foundation skills, it could be driver licensing, it could be learning to cook, it could be whatever it is. The requirements, that's the stuff that you need your participants to bring. So if you're running a sewing program, you might need them to bring a sewing machine. So you'd pop that in there, or you might need them to bring some fabric or whatever it might be. And staff requirements, I don't know, how do you guys use that weighted upper?
Just for equipment and stuff. If you need to book equipment like the Chromebooks or something, just so that it's a reminder to get it done.
Yeah.
And all these items go on to the letter, so the requirements and everything, it's important to have them right there, because that goes on to the enrolment letter that the person gets when you send it to them.
So the staff requirements won't, but information from the course content, the participant requirements, and the general comments. No, I don't know if they do.
No, so general comments are generally for just for other points to note. So what I've been saying to REAPs in recent times is if you're running a course and it's not clear how it might align with the ACE priorities, pop a note in there to say how it aligns. So for example, we're doing a program around mindfulness. This links to the health and well-being priority in this way. Now, the reason I say that is if you are audited by TEC, then you can show the thought process that you went through to say, yes, this is a program that we should be including for funding purposes for our ACE and communities. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, a location, that's where the actual course is going to be held, and you'll have a drop-down list, generally speaking, about where you might run various things. And this one's going to be at REAP House. The organisation, that's generally who you're partnering with around running a course. So some of you I know partner with other organisations in your community. Others it'll just be a REAP course. So you wouldn't necessarily have a partner organisation noted in there.
So I'll just, for the purpose of our test, we're going to do this one with beef and lamb.
Yeah. The reason this is important is when we report, quite often we need to report about who we are collaborating with and who we're partnering with. So having this set up as part of your activity means that we can report on it more easily. Some of you I know will work with particular organisations in your community, and I know, for example, Wairarapa, you work with Ideas Services, which is working with an organisation that supports people with intellectual disabilities. That generally means that they've got the learners, they supply the learners, you supply the learning and the tutors and the venue, that sort of thing. So having them listed as a partner is a really good way to show that you collaborate with another organisation.
Yeah, and as you see, like when we added our first organisation that we were opportunity to add, so you can add as many or as few as you need to there.
Yeah. The documents area is if you do have project plans, that's where you should upload them. And you can have, like you said, there's a drop-down list of the different types of documents you might be uploading. It's also a place where I suggest that you upload any case studies that you might do post-activity, where you've written up a bit of a story about that particular activity, upload your case study there as well. So it means you don't have to write it all into the narrative because you don't have a lot of space to do that. The narrative section, which we'll talk about soon, is really just a few major dot points, whereas a case study is a more in-depth look at the program that you've just run. And that's where you can write it up and save it as a PDF and chuck it in there. Makes it easy for me. I can find it, read it, use it for other reporting that I might be doing. Means that you can also access it yourselves at a later date if you need to. Attendance lists can go in here as well. Costing information, whatever else you might need to upload. It's just a place for you to put stuff.
Yeah, and so this list here that's dropping down, this is unique to Wairarapa. So every REAP has the ability to set their own list here within their preferences. So anyone that's an admin level user within your REAP has the ability to adapt that list for you guys. So if there's something that you guys think is important that you guys would like the option to select on there, then it's talking to one of your admin users, or that might also be you, is making sure that that's added.
Awesome. I needed to know that one. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Down the right-hand side, the priorities, you can see they're already there. That's what you selected when you were setting this activity up in the first instance. So that will automatically pull across. It's also quite good for you just to double check that the priority that you assigned to this is actually correct. And I think you can change it on the screen too. If you think, oh, actually, no, it's not an employability skills program. It's actually a foundation skills program. I might change it to that. So if you can do that, please, Abby.
Yeah. So we've gone, oops, what we did at the start wasn't quite right. So that's updated. And as a result, it's asking us to reselect our primary focus, which is obviously linked to these guys. So we'll change that to the literacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if we can just zap to the targets tab. So this is the area where you align the program that you're setting up to your regional priorities and in the case of ACE to the tertiary education strategy priorities. So let's align this one to a regional priority. And there's your list. So each REAP has got your own list of regional priorities. Some of you have got a gazillion of them. Message I've given managers this morning is less is more. So the challenge for you for 2026 is to go through your regional priorities and pare that list down a bit. You don't need to have too many. So we're saying in this particular case, this particular program aligns to regional priority for foundation skills. We're also going to align it to the tertiary education strategy, and for this particular one, we're going to say it's gain sound foundation skills, including literacy, language, and numeracy. So that's that. What I have noticed is that in recent times, this bit's not always getting done. It needs to be done for every activity that you're setting up. We've now changed REAPiT to tell you that you haven't done it. So if that step's been missed, you'll get a box that won't let you carry on until you actually set the thing up. Is that right, Abby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you try to complete the program, you'll get a little message to let you know, and you won't be able to complete it. So you'll just have to nip back.
Right. The area on the right-hand side there under evaluation, don't use that. Okay, we're going to get rid of that. Please don't use it. I know Abby sent that notice out to everyone before, just reminding you not to use it. Can you talk about the evaluation learning goals, Abby?
Yeah, so yeah, that's the old evaluative system. So we moved to our new one now. So as part of the new evaluation system, we added this box here. So the evaluation learning goals. So that's something that pulls through to our evaluations that we have for our learners. So here we want to set what our learning goals are for our course. So I'm just going to write testing just so we can show you what's coming through. So we've set our learning goals, and again, it's probably only a couple of learning goals for the course. And then that will then pull through. So we're just going to move through to our evaluation tab now and down to our evaluation forms. So you'll see that what I've just written in there has now pre-populated on the evaluation form. So this evaluation form is ready to be printed off and presented to your learners prior to the activity finishing. So that's how that little space works there. So all these evaluation questions have been agreed upon across our reps when we set up this evaluation platform. So you have the choice of obviously printing directly out of REAPiT, which is really cool, or you guys might still have it as a Word document, or but everybody's agreed to use the same question format.
Right, any questions about that?
So that was and just the only other thing was the ability you can change the target that you did originally select on setting up your activity as well. So if you did have that thought where you thought, oh, my primary target or whatever have changed, you also do have the option to realign your target up here as well.
Right, so it makes sense to everyone.
I've got a question. Where do we then put the evaluative question answers or the responses?
Yeah, do we want to head there now, or do we want to?
You might as well head there now while the question's fresh.
Okay. Actually, shall we head there later? Because one thing that Tracy Graham taught me when I started, and I think it's really good, is to actually, when you're setting up an activity, is to make sure you go through the tabs. And that's how I've always remembered to make sure that we cover everything off. So we've done our details tab. We obviously jump forward to our targets to talk about that, but you want to make sure that you've got your sessions in there. So we did that as well. If you guys are using it, you do have the ability to add your tutors as well. So your tutors that go into the system, you can link them up here, and you can create tutor contracts for them as well. I don't know if we want to look at that, or we might, if we've got time, look at that later.
Does everyone use that or not? You do? No, you don't. Some of you do, some of you don't. Okay, I'm thinking if you are currently not using it and you'd like to use it, we'll do that as a separate thing.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Rather than going into that in detail right now because it'll
Yes.
take a bit. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, please, if you are one of those reps that don't use it currently and would like to use it, let Abby know and we'll run a separate session on that. It's one of those things that it really depends on your other systems and processes within your REAP as to how you do this sort of thing. One thing I will say is that if you do decide to use this, you can manage all of your tutor arrangements through this because it does produce an individual employment agreement. It produces a letter to your tutor, and it also produces what's called a tutor return, which is something that your tutor would complete and send back when they finish the course that activates them then getting paid. You can set your tutor hourly rate in here, you can set tutor travel time, all sorts of things. So it is a bit of a time saver.
Yeah.
You just got to invest a little bit of time up front to set it up. But once it's set up, it actually means that you're not having to replicate this information anywhere else within your organisation because it's actually in REAPiT for you. So something I would suggest if you are interested in finding out a bit more about it, we can show you that, but it will take a bit more time than this we've got for today.
Yeah.
So please just flick myself or Abby an email if you're interested in learning a bit more about that, and we'll run a separate session on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next tab is the enrolments tab. So that would be adding your learner enrolments.
Yeah, I think can we add a couple of people, and there may be a couple of staff members that might be in your system, or even let's set up a new person.
Yeah, no, I'll enroll me into this one. So in terms of adding a new enrollment into the system, you come up here and you click enroll. So this gives you the option to search the system to see if they're in the system already, or it may be that you need to put a new person in. So we're going to search for Abby, and these are all the Abbies in our system, but it's me. I want to enroll in this program, which is cool. So I've already done a past program with REAP, so this is great. And we've got the details in the system. So I've selected myself and I want to enroll Abby Hayton into the course. If I did a search and I couldn't find a learner in the system, you might want to run it by Abby. You might want to then try their last name as well. So make sure you do a good search to see if the person is or isn't in the system. If not, then it would be a new student that you would be enrolling into the system. So you would select new student and you would have to input their details that way. Because I'm in the system, then I'm going to enroll me into it. It then brings us to this page, which is my enrollment within our activity, our test rubbish activity, and it's showing the details about myself. So these details will be from when I previously enrolled in an activity. So if there's things that do need updating, then is your opportunity to update those. And you can move into my larger file or my actual student file in REAPiT by selecting that dot and taking me there. So that's me. And then making sure that all my details are still correct there. And then obviously, if I'm wanting to go back to my enrollment within that activity, that's here. A big thing, I guess, to talk about here, Tracy, is around the learner ID.
Yeah. So for ACE in particular, it's a condition of our funding from the TEC that we ensure that we've verified that our learners, verified their eligibility and their identity. Now that's all in the information about ACE document, which you can find in REAPiT in the global templates area. There's information about ACE 2025 that talks about verification of eligibility and identity. Now, one thing we know is if we can find a person's national student number or NSN, then that ticks both boxes for identity and eligibility. So if we were to have somebody and we find the NSN, Abby, can you just click on the little dot by your name? Yeah. We can enter an NSN into REAPiT and we need to select the type of identification that we've got. So NSN is what we would select in this case, which is what's been correctly done here. If Abby didn't have a national student number, we must either get a copy of their birth certificate, well, cite a copy of their birth certificate, their New Zealand passport, or there's another form called Identity Self-Declaration Form. And Abby will show you where to find that form.
So then that's in the templates section. So back to the main menu and into templates. Down in the global template list, right at the bottom here, we've got the self-declaration form.
Yeah, so we have to do one of those things for every ACE learner. This has been a fun condition for the last few years, and what I've noticed is that we've been really inconsistent in doing this. If we were audited by TEC and we couldn't show that we have at least one of those forms of ID, then we would be told that we can't count those learners for funding purposes. So I just want to stress to you that this is an important step that many of you are missing. You just need to get on and get it done. Now, what we do know is that most people have got a national student number. We know that that seems to have worked quite well. It's for those people that don't, that you need to look at getting or viewing a copy of their birth certificate or their passport. And you guys know as well as I do that most of our learners won't have one of those. So therefore, we need to get the self-identification declaration done by those learners. Okay, any questions about that?
So we can't use their New Zealand driver license for that?
Not for this.
No. Okay.
We're tidying up that part of REAPiT because we do know that for learner eligibility, it has to be national student number. It could be Real Me verification, which we're going to add to the list, or a passport or birth certificate or self-declaration. For identity, you can use the firearms license or their driver's license. So that it's a little bit confusing. It's in the fund conditions. It's in that document that you've all got access to. Have a read. But like I say, if you get the NSN, then NSN is king, right? If we get that done, we're ticking both sides of those boxes. If we're not getting an NSN, but we're getting the birth certificate or passport, then we're ticking both sides of those boxes. So we're all good. If we have to use the self-identification declaration, that's where we must get another form of ID. And if possible, it could be driver's license, firearms license, a community services card or a gold card. And you need to get a copy of that and attach it to that self-declaration form.
Hey, Trace, I'm just wondering, like an online one would be ideal for that, eh? Where you can just take a photo of it.
Yeah.
And it's all zapped away in a...
Yeah, you've got to make your best effort. It's your best effort to try and get this stuff. So in reality, we know that that won't happen for every single learner. So that's where at least getting the self-identification declaration done is important. That's sort of like your last resort document. Mel, were you going to say something?
So if I turn that around, you're saying, because for all our licensing people, we just use the driver license as ID.
Yeah.
Everyone else we use NSN. So if we're going to use driver's license, then we need to attach what's not a DL26. What's that one called?
The self-declaration. Yeah.
So if we've got a license for ID, we need to put the DEC form next to it as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not up to play with what identification they need to get their driver's license. But quite often they have to either show their passport or birth certificate, don't they, to get a driver's license. So if you got that, then you've ticked the box anyway, right?
No, because you're not accepting the driver's license.
No,
driver's license tells you that they've got a passport or birth certificate. It's really weird that they're not accepting the driver's license.
Yeah, I know, but that's
Is that though? that we are accepting the driver's license if they're signing a self-declaration with the driver's license.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
But think about it as a hierarchy of identification, right? So we're using this declaration as sort of like the last resort. We've got to have exhausted those other options first. Now, I know that this is going to be, for some of your learners, this might be a bit difficult. It is what it is, right? We don't set the rules. The rules are set. They're in the fund conditions. We have no choice about this. So this is, we can reassure our learners that we don't use this information for any other purpose than to include them for funding purposes. And that can be your argument for this, is if they want to be able to participate in this learning and to do it for free, they have to provide this. All right.
I've got a comment. The thing that I find with this is that at the moment, if someone's enrolling online, it's not a specification that they give us their national student number or something else. So the enrolment comes through to us, and it's not until we've enrolled them that we then see that we need to get that. And then that's all right if the course is then running at REAP or something, but if it's out at Ekatahuna or some place where we're not actually physically ever seeing that student, so it becomes difficult to get that information if they haven't got a national student number.
That's probably a process issue for us, and that we need to add that to our on our webs as part of our online enrolment thing.
I mean, the thing is, you guys can access the NSNs and you can find their NSNs for them. That's all good. But you will have a group of learners that you haven't been able to do that for. And like Abby says, it's your process that you then need to modify to address that issue.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's quite a difficult thing if they're not physically ever in the building with us.
Yeah, so that's how you might, whoever's running that course for you, you're going to have to get them to do whatever is required to get that appropriate form of ID included.
Yeah, so the tutors need to know why it's important as well, don't they?
Yeah, it's all part of how you brief your tutors, for sure. Okay, let's move on. So just wanted to reassure you guys that this isn't us saying you need to do this for shits and giggles. This is a requirement for funding purposes. We have no choice in it. It's also something that we've argued against because of the nature of our ACE learners. This is yet one more barrier we're putting up. We've tried to argue that point, and we'll continue to argue that point. Reality is, at the moment, this is the fund conditions we have to work within. These are the rules we work within. Anyhow.
Yeah, so just mindful of obviously our time. So around the learner enrolments, if there are people that feel like they need more support around enrolling learners, enrollment letters and class lists, which we had on that, then that could be another thing that you touch base with us around, because we probably don't have time to go into detail with it right now.
Okay, so we've been right through to the targets bit. We've done that. So let's look at the evaluation side.
So the new evaluation system all runs from here. So the evaluation forms, what we talked about before, the learning goals happen on the targets tab, and then that is populated into there so you can run that. In terms of data input, when you've got your completed enrolment forms, you come and you hit here, and then it's as simple as 1 line per learner feedback that they've completed, and that just follows the sequence of the questions that are on the evaluation form. So as you complete them and you do stuff in here, obviously things happen. Everyone's really happy with what's going on. And then the minute you have something input into there, you obviously can add in all your details, but you simply click off. And then once there's data in, you'll see that another button has arrived here, and that's our summary button. So that instantly gives us a summary of the feedback that's come in from the learners, which is a really cool snapshot. And that is for the activity. that information also then sucks up into the overarching ACE evaluation, where we can look at it as a whole, which is really cool.
Any questions about that? Nope. Okay.
Everybody's
Right.
happy with
I
that.
just put in the chat. Wouldn't it make sense to have the evaluation learning goal on this tab as opposed to having it on the targets tab?
Yeah, yes is the answer. The reason why it isn't here is because this space is linked to the old evaluation system, and it was still held there while we transitioned. So once we confirm that everybody's not using this old evaluation system here and there, then there is potential for it to be moved to this page. But at the time of setting it up, that's the home that it was given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Righty. Okay, so shall we complete this particular?
Yeah. So in terms of completing an activity, when you guys got sent this, you would have got sent the little list that we were going to run through. So on the list around completing an activity, it's important checks on every tab to do before the activity is completed. So it's making sure that you then go back and run back through to do your checks to make sure that you're happy with all your information. The big thing will be making sure that obviously all your enrollment information is tidied up. So when you've finished your activity, it's making sure that you put in the hours that the learners did attend. So I came to both my sessions and was there for the total of the 4 hours, and that you update the status of that person's enrollment. So if they haven't been updated to completed, they won't pull through to the data. So there's obviously a range of different things that you can choose from, depending on what's happened with that learner along the journey of the activity. But I've been here and I've completed that information. What you'll see is once we do that, the information down here also updates. So that gives you a snapshot of what's been going on in the activity. Your expected learner hours, your actual hours, your variance. If you've got a variance that's looking a bit low, below that, here is the space to write the notes as to why there is that variance.
So just want to remind everyone that as a collective, we've agreed that we are striving towards 85% of our actual learning hours to our expected learner hours across the board. So that means that you may well have some programs in with what you're running where you'll get 100%, but you also might have some where you're getting 60%. What we don't want you to do is to change your data at all or manipulate your data so you're getting up to 85%. We just want you to put a reason why, if it's less than 85%, why that reason might be. And it may well be that 2 or 3 of your learners were sick and they only came to 1 or 2 sessions instead of 5 sessions, or whatever it is. I don't want you to manipulate your data. Your data is what it is. Also, just want to remind you, it's a guideline and a benchmark. It's not a hard goal. So if you thought it was a hard goal, it's not. It's just a benchmark and a guideline. Now, the reason it's in place is when we are requesting additional funding from TUC, what they look at is what they call high value, high outcomes allocations. So for us to get additional allocations, if we were sitting at 60% of our learners, our actual learner hours being at 60% of expected learner hours, compared to another organisation that might be up at 80%, if they're looking to invest limited funds, they will choose the 80% provider, not the 60% provider, because that is higher value in their mind. That's why that was put in place. So a few years ago, we were sitting at 60% compared to others in the sector who are higher. Now we're one of the leading providers across the ACE sector. We're sitting up around 82%, 83% at the moment. So we're doing pretty well. Now, what that tells TUC is that most of our learners stick around and complete their learning. and that's what they want to see. So that's why that's there. I'm not sure if you guys realize that. I think for some of you, it's become a hard and fast target. It's not. It's a guideline. It's a benchmark. Any questions about that? It's in the funding about information about ACE document. There's a bit of an explanation in there about it. Have a read if you need to just remind yourself what it's about.
So now that we've made sure that all our learners are on the right status, again, a really good rule of thumb that Tracy Graham taught me was making sure that you go back and you go through all your tabs and are just double checking that you've got all your information right. So you're checking that your hours are correct, you're checking your organisations are added, your documents have been uploaded, your priorities are correct. You're checking your session times aligned. Your obviously tutor information is up to date. Your enrolments, that all their statuses are correct, the correct hours are added, any comments that need to be made are added, and obviously that rationale for variance if required. You're making sure that your targets are in place so that they have been added and they're all set at the right thing. You're making sure that your evaluation data has gone in, and then you are able to complete your demographic stuff when you complete your activity. So once you change that to completed, that will then update all your demographic data.
Now, one thing we've noticed is that if you go back and change your data in any way, you do need to recalculate your demographics. It's not automatically doing it. So if you've gone through and you've updated information, don't assume it's just going to automatically recalculate, because it just doesn't at the moment. It's something we're trying to get sorted. So work on the basis that it's not working properly and that you need to go back in and recalculate demographics every time you make a change.
And obviously, once a program or an activity is completed, if you are only at a user level permission, then obviously you don't have any ability to go back in and change that data. So if data did need to be updated for some reason, then that would need to be done through an admin level user.
Okay.
Well, the one thing we did miss was actually, adding the qualifications gained. So if the activity did have qualifications that were a result of the activity, this was where you also added those. So as a result of this activity, I gained my
It's because it's completed, I'd say.
Oh, you do have the ability to add this after completion.
Oh, okay.
Because we did recognize, I don't know why that's doing that though, but we did recognize that you may, for the likes of licensing, a program may be completed, but a learner might complete a bit later on, and you still had the ability to go in. But I'll check it back and see if that works. Oh, that is working now. So again, this is allowing us to track the qualifications. So I've gained a full license as a result of this rubbish activity, and on this date, or you have the ability to choose a different date in any notes. So once a learner is completed in status, they will appear on this list. So if learners aren't appearing on this list, it's because they don't have a completed status and therefore cannot have the qualification added to them. So if you're thinking, oh, Bob should be there, you need to go back and check that Bob's status is at completed.
All right, any questions about that? Yes.
Question. Hi. Hey, if we have completed the activity, but we receive some details, some additional paperwork to add, do we have to uncomplete it, add the paperwork in the document center at the front in the details tab, and then recomplete it and hit the demographics?
I don't think you'd have to hit the demographics again, but I think you have to uncomplete it, don't you, to add anything.
So you would have to uncomplete. So that's done through the audit tab, and that's available for anyone who's admin level user. So you have the ability to uncomplete that there. You can then go back and add your details here. And then head back to your evaluation tab and complete it again. The only reason why you would want to calculate demographics again is if you went back in and you made some sort of update to the enrollments information, because that's what all the demographic information is linked to. So if you've gone in there and had an adjustment to something, then that is when you would need to recalculate that data before completion.
Cool, clear as, thank you.
Cool.
Right. Any other questions about setting up and then completing an activity? A few steps to go through, but like Abby says, if you go through it tab by tab, you'll be fine. Okay, can we just go back to reports, Abby? I want to go to the Learners Without Verification report.
Yeah.
So this report is your friend. This is Whited Upper's report. So thank you to Whited Upper for sharing. So this report is all the learners that you have enrolled this year in ACE programs. Is it just ACE programs or is it all programs?
Oh, it's probably any enrolled program potentially.
Yeah, so if you're mainly, if I know most of you will be doing enrolled programs for ACE only, most of you will be doing group programs for ECN schools, but you might have the occasional one there. But in this particular case, these are mainly enrolled programs for ACE. On this list are people that have not had their identity or eligibility verified. So what Whited Upper need to do is go through this list and systematically work through and work on that identity and eligibility stuff. You've all got access.
Everybody see that or only the admin level?
I don't know actually.
That's a good question.
Because I've never been able to see that list.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a little action is to ensure that report is visible for all users.
Yeah. Can we just also scroll down so we can find one that's got a number that's on the list? So in theory, nobody who has an NSN should be on this list, but we do have somebody here.
Here we go.
And the reason why
they're not a good one because that was upholstery.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, okay.
So the reason why this person's number, they've got an NSN, but they're popped up in this list is because their ID type hasn't been selected. So you might recall when we were looking at Abby's record, we had NSN as the ID type and then the number sitting beside it. So you need to make sure you're selecting the right ID type.
So you can easily, if this learner's got it, you can easily just update that there. So you have the ability to then choose that that's NSN there. Or if it's something bigger than that, you've got the ability to make a few adjustments here. So if you noticed something can miss within their details here, you can simply click on their little person and update. So you can do that there. Or the other option is to obviously go back into the main student list and find Max and go into the student file for that learner.
The only drawback with this particular report is you can't go back to the main student list from this report. You have to go out, find that student and go in that way. It's a bit of a pain in the neck, but it is what it is at the moment. You'll notice under Rhiannon Hucker, we've got the words no results listed in there. That's been because whoever has uploaded that person's record, they haven't been able to find an NSN. We need to stop doing that. If they've got no NSN, they've got no NSN. So what's the other identity that we're trying to find? Identity verification. So if you've got a few on the list that say that, then don't do that.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, Tracy, we've got to go. But thanks, team. Yeah.
No worries. If there's anything that you want to pick up at a later date, just let me know.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's that report. If you're somebody who's responsible for monitoring your ACE,
over here.
We can look at the consolidated ACE report.
So this one lives over in the external reports. You'll find these ones. And we'll go, you want the whole year again, Trace?
Yeah, please.
Let's do that. And we'll choose that contract.
Now this report's really handy. If you're the person who's responsible for monitoring, then this report gives you a few bits and pieces that make your job a bit easier. Now you can see before you convert that, Abby, you'll see there are a number of programs there with red numbers. You can see all of those numbers sit below 85%. So that's a really quick view for you to see that this particular program, which was a health and wellbeing creative, it's been completed, but it was only 57% of actual learner hours, the expected learner hours. It has this little asterisk beside it, and that means that a little explanation has been added into that box in the enrolments tab. If we look at Te Reo Māori Pahia Toa Term 1, it's sitting at 58%. There's no little asterisk sitting there. It means that no explanation has been popped in there. Probably need to pop one in because it's pretty low. It's almost like only half. Okay, sorry if my dogs are nutting off and you guys can hear that, I apologise. The other thing with this particular report is it lets you track where you're at in terms of your expected learner hours and your actual learner hours so far. And it's just a really good way to monitor how you're tracking throughout the year. I quite often use this report when I'm looking to see how we're going as a collective. For example, the May reports that I ran just recently to TEC showed us that about a third of the way there in terms of our contracted target. That caused me to be slightly concerned because we should be more than a third by now. This time last year, we were nearly halfway there. So what I was able to do was go back in and into that report and see how many programs were still running, and that's those with an approved status, and how many programs you guys are thinking of running, and that's those with a planned status. Now, if you haven't included approved or planned programs in REAPiT, then I have no clue as to what you've got coming up. So I urge you to add those in if you can, because it just helps me with monitoring and helps me with planning and monitoring the collective. It also helps you from a local level as well. We've got that information available to you. Any questions about that? And Abby's just converted that report to an Excel spreadsheet, so that's you can then filter that information. So if you want to filter,
once you get here, you can. Oh, that's not going to do what I want it to do. You can pop some filters on so that you can obviously filter by your status or however you want to cut the pie and look at different things.
Can you just filter on cancelled courses, please? Oh, you've only got one. Okay. So what if there was a few on that list, I might look at that as somebody who's responsible for monitoring and go, okay, we've got a few courses that are being cancelled. Firstly, I'd look at who's doing it, who's the person that's organising it, and if it's the same person, then I'd be asking that person why have those courses been cancelled. Now, they're probably a very good reason for it, but it also alerts you to potential issues that you might need to be managing in terms of is that person targeting the right stuff? Are the programs what your community is asking for? It's those sorts of questions you could be asking yourselves. If you can just go back and filter on everything except for cancelled and completed, so take cancelled and completed out. This is telling me that there is these programs that Wairarapa are looking to run between now and the end of the year. If I just totaled the column J, yeah, if I just want to total that column, yeah. Okay, so that's telling me that there's roughly about 7,000 odd hours planned for the remainder of this year. Now, I know that they won't hit all of that 7,000 hours because we know that not everyone turns up that you're expecting to turn up. But if you put that alongside where they're already at in terms of their expected learner hours, it's telling me that they're on target to hit their contract. So from a monitoring perspective, it's really handy to use this report. And I know that you do a lot of monitoring at East Bay. Do you use this report at all?
Anna's asleep.
No, still on mute, Anna. No, okay. All right, Janelle, what about you? Is this a report you use?
Yeah, use it all the time.
Yeah, and it helps you just seeing how you fellas are tracking, doesn't it?
Yeah, heaps of stuff. You can just heaps of checking that you can do, check that things have entered correctly or not, or yeah, I don't know, just use it all the time actually.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So yes, it's just a really handy report to know that you've got available to you, that you can monitor your progress towards your contracted targets. And it also allows you to know when to push the panic button as well. So if you're at the end of October and you're still miles off your target, then you'll be able to see from this report just how far off you actually are.
Sorry, Trace, we do use it. Yeah.
You do, yeah. Yeah, no, good. I think that's about all I had. Abby, have I missed anything?
No, that's about it. Like, yeah, obviously I've got to go in 5 anyway. So if there is more comprehensive stuff on a couple of those sections that we talked about, so like the tutor contracts and more support around enrollments and different things like that, then obviously we can do more in those spaces. The only other one was just the overarching evaluation summary. So we talked about the evals, obviously at an activity level, but then just remembering that if you want to see how obviously ACE is performing as a whole, you can go and you can run the overall ACE evaluation summary report. So if you do that, that gives you a really good indication of how things are tracking. And again, like most reports, it gives you the option to export your raw data. So if you're seeing something on your evaluation summary that's a bit like, oh, that's not what we thought we would be seeing. And maybe that some things are not met, or you're getting a lot of things that are saying that, they haven't met the goals, or then you can obviously report that report to Excel, and that will give you that raw data, and you can see what activities that's linking to. So it's like that evaluative cycle. You can go back and have a look at that and see what's going on in the background.
So for example, you might have a particular type of course that you're running, and consistently your learners are saying that their learning needs have not been met.
Yeah.
That's a report where you can utilize that and go, well, okay, so what are the trends that we're seeing here? Why haven't they been met? And it could be a range of different things that are causing that sort of result. But I suppose the message for you guys is that the stuff's there, it's in REAPiT. If you're not utilizing it to its best ability, or to your best ability, then you've got a resource here that you're not making the best use of. It's there already. You don't need to have other systems sitting alongside this. Some of it is, for some of you, I know that you do run multiple systems. There's a whole lot of stuff in REAPiT that you could actually be utilizing more effectively if you're not already doing so. I know some of you use this stuff all the time and find it really helpful. And for others, it's just a pain in the neck, something that you have to do. We don't want it to be like that. We want it to be a tool that you can actually use and get a lot of value out of using as well. So just wanted to share a few thoughts with you about that. Abby, if you need to go, that's all good. I can carry on.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, my dog's seen it enough. Yeah, do you want to unshare your screen,
Yeah.
Abby? Yeah.
Oh, all right. Ka kite, guys.
Yeah, Abby. Yeah, so does anyone have any other questions or want to know anything else about what we've discussed or something we haven't touched on?
Oh, Trace, I'm just putting it out that I don't make the time to put planned courses in there. So I think it's about being deliberate to do that.
Yeah.
I'm rather just that kind of person that just gets shit done.
Yeah.
But I can hear that I need to get them in there, eh?
Yeah, I
not
think
year is planned. Yeah.
yeah, so for me to run a report, like when I ran the report to TEC for May, I got nervous because it was like, oh crap, we're actually quite a ways off. So
Yeah.
we're sitting at about 30,000 expected learner hours at the end of May. This time last year we were at 45,000. So that's a bit of a difference. And we're aiming for 109,000. That's our contract collectively. So because a number of reps didn't have their planned or approved stuff on there, thanks Mary Rose, that meant that I wasn't sure how reps were going. So I've had to contact a few reps just to see how you fellas are tracking. And for some of you, I know where you're at, but for some of you, I don't. And REAPiT is my tool for finding stuff out. So yeah, please, but my plea is if you can put the planned and approved stuff in there, please do it because it helps from a monitoring perspective. It just helps me also know where I might need to help you a bit more as well. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? No, we've got our mix of provision coming up for 2026. I've sent out the documents to your managers. So I don't know if you guys have seen them or not, but your managers have got them. They're due to me by the end of the month. If anyone needs reap by reap sessions on this, happy to do it, spend a bit more time with you about what that might look like from your reps perspective. What I don't want you to do is copy and paste what you did this year and what you did last year because TEC are going through this stuff line by line now. We don't have the luxury of just being able to put up whatever, knowing that we're going to deliver what our communities want. They're actually looking at stuff, making decisions about what they're prepared to buy and what they're not prepared to buy. So really important that you give it the time it needs to really do your best crystal ball gazing that you possibly can do for your region. Now, I reminded managers this morning there's this the integrated investment plan has what you've said your communities need because that's what they've told you. That should correlate back to what you're putting into your mix of provision as well. So, like I say, happy to go through that process with you individually if that's what you need, just so we can really put our best foot forward in terms of our mix of provision for 2026. Yeah. Thanks, Kitty. Any final questions, comments? Hopefully some of you have learnt some new stuff and this has been helpful. And if anyone needs some one-on-one, please let me know. And please get back to myself or Abby if you are interested in looking at using the tutor part of REAPiT in terms of your processes. We can show you how to do that. Fabulous. Okay, thanks everyone for your participation.